Save the Semantics, episode 87. It is October 5th, 2019. My name is Myro. This is the podcast where I ramble on about myself and things that I may be currently interested in. It's been about a couple of weeks since I recorded last time. Just have had a lot on my plate. Haven't really had the time to get out and do a recording, so here I am. We're in the month of October. Beautiful weather right now. I think October definitely has like the nicest weather for sure. What else? What else has been going on? Not a whole lot. Just went through my first week of classes. Seems alright. Everything seems to be in order. I don't have like a particularly difficult schedule this time around, which is kind of nice. I'm trying to like enjoy myself as much as I can, whatever that really means, but just sort of take the time to, of course putting the time and effort into class, but also just maybe some extracurriculars, maybe working out, maybe some other things. I'm not entirely sure. I did try to schedule myself like a workout plan this past week that I hope to follow through throughout the rest of this quarter. But that's already failed. That's already not worked out. Monday morning, I got up around like 6 o'clock. Like what my idea was, like I was gonna get up early before class and then work out. And I was able to do that Monday morning, but then Wednesday morning I had some other stuff. I had like this one, it's like a networking event that I went to, so I had to dress up for that, and I'm like, I don't really want to carry all this other stuff to to the gym or whatever. So Wednesday I didn't do, and then Friday I was just like, I was not feeling it. I just was not feeling like waking up Friday morning. Like my phone has been kind of fucking with me lately. I think I've mentioned that. Mainly because just like the charging port is getting old and getting dirty. And one time I had to go to the phone repair store to get that fixed. Like essentially they took out the charging port and they did like a thorough cleaning of it, and then it started to charge properly. But I've just kind of used like a toothpick or like a cotton swab to like clean it out a little bit. But that's kind of my method of dealing with it. Instead of paying, how much did I pay for that? Like $40, which is kind of ridiculous, right? Like I feel like $40 just to like clean it and shit. Like come on, I know they don't get I'm sure they don't get like a whole lot of customers maybe, but still $40 to clean it. Come on, man. Really? Can you just use like a, what is it? A dust cleaner? I've tried using it. It hasn't worked. So I guess there's like another method they use to clean out the port. I'm not entirely sure. So yeah, that's just kind of been fucking with me. So like Friday morning, I was, like Thursday night I had difficulty trying to charge my phone, put it in the socket, and then, set the timer because my alarm clock is on my phone. And then I woke up around like 4 o'clock or something like that to use the bathroom. I checked my phone and the battery was dead. So I'm like, fuck. So it hasn't charged at all, right? So I had to for the next 20, 30 minutes or so, I was just trying to plug the charger into the phone and then failing to create a connection, like a charging connection. So I was just like, this is fucking ridiculous. And eventually it turned back on, but it was just I already lost some sleep there. That screwed me up. So I was like, I have no motive. I'm just gonna sleep to to a time where I feel like I've gotten enough sleep. And even then, I felt pretty tired yesterday. So that's that. But I want to try. Next week is it's gonna be every subsequent week is just gonna be me trying again, and then failing. I'm going to be able to do it one day. I'm going to be able to work out one day. And then every other day, I'm just going to be like, fuck this. It's just consistency, I think it's just back in high school, it was already like in my routine. I was already so used to like after school, I had like track or I had cross country or stuff like that. So I already had that set in my routine. I was already prepared to like, run to work out and stuff like that. But now it's just kind of it's just I'll just do it once in a while. I'll go to the gym. I'll go for a run when I feel like it. But I kind of want to try to be, I want to be not necessarily strict, but I want to be a little more consistent, and I want to try to like actually put in the time. The issue is like the mornings or like late nights are usually like the best times. Late night, like from what I've heard, like working out at night is good because like not a whole lot of people are there. But the time when it's like best for me is like in the afternoon, but that's also the time that's best for most people. So the gym is just fucking packed like all the time, and I really just don't like dealing with that. There's not a whole lot of space for me to put my stuff, my belongings in like a safe compartment or whatever. So I was like, okay, let's try working out in the morning when there's nobody there. Also, working out is going to give me like a boost. It's going to wake me up or whatever. And I did that Monday, and I felt I felt relatively energized for the most part. And then I kind of like, I kind of like crashed at around like 11 or so. I was like, fuck. Oh my God. I'm so tired. And it's only Monday. Like I'm exhausted, so I just have to find like a good balance, I'll try to go in the afternoon. I just, cross my fingers that it's just not as busy. Like I have to find a time where it's hard because it's like the perfect time. The weather's nice and all that. It's warm or whatever, but it's not too cold. It's cold in the mornings and at night, but that period of time is like just right. So I'll give it like another shot, but we'll see. We'll see how that goes. I've been what else have I been doing? Not a whole lot to say, I guess. I've just been like working on classes and stuff like that. Taking a break from like accounting based classes for a little while. So that's going to be rough transitioning back into it in the winter because that's when I'm going to be like taking accounting classes. So we'll see how that goes. Oh yeah, that's right. I got a Dragon Quest 11 for the Switch recently. I got the Japanese edition just because I feel like I think like just having that is just nice. I don't really read or I don't really read Japanese a whole lot, so I feel like it's good practice to have just to like even if it's like basic Japanese language, or like hiragana or whatever. Like at least I can kind of like understand it, right? And I can sort of I can get back into it a little bit. I don't usually practice Japanese. I haven't taken any classes or anything like that. I learned it very early on, but there aren't really a whole lot of other Japanese speaking people around in my life. So I think that's just sort of a way for me to kind of get in tune with that. And also, I prefer having like Japanese voice acting as opposed to English voice acting. I think it just fits it fits sort of the animation style a lot better. And I think there's other like bonus features as well. With the Japanese edition that I got, there's like some DLC stuff. So that's kind of cool. I've had a good amount of fun with it. It's a lot easier than some other like JRPGs and other Dragon Quest games in the series. I think it definitely caters to a more like casual crowd, but I still have definitely had my enjoyment of it. I think the story so far is pretty well written. All the characters are relatively fleshed out and are interesting and engaging, and you sort of have a nice camaraderie with your own character. So I've had a lot of fun with it. And I think I mentioned Dragon's Dogma as well. I've reached like the final boss, but I've kind of got stuck with that, so sort of shelved it for later use. So right now I'm just kind of going through Dragon Quest and having a good time with it. I finished I finished watching New Girl. Like I watched it until like last year. I finished it. Like I finished it up until like this. I think it was the seventh. I think it was 8 seasons, right? I think the seventh season, and then um, Netflix didn't have the eighth season available, so I was just kind of waiting around for it. And then I decided to rewatch the entire show from beginning to end, and I finally watched it all the way through. Um, that's like I think that's like the first like sitcom or whatever that I've actually watched all the way through. I haven't done that with like The Office or anything like that, just because I feel like I got to like the point where like the sixth or seventh season when like Michael leaves, and then the quality and the writing of the show kind of declines a little bit. And I don't know. I watched a few episodes after it, and it just didn't have the same kind of charm or the same energy as it did before. So I stopped watching that. But with New Girl, I watched it all the way through, and it's sort of like a similar thing. Like the later seasons definitely kind of decline in quality. The last season is just not as good. It's a lot shorter too. It's like half the series length of all the other seasons. So you get less episodes, and you feel like it feels a bit rushed, you know. But I think it ended as well as it could have. Like there's no, I think it's not really like it's not really as like sentimental as I feel like it could have been, but I still think it ended on like a good note. Um, and I'll definitely be rewatching it sometime soon. I think like the early seasons had a lot going to it. Like the episode that like I didn't watch it in order, but like the episode that like got me into like the show was like the Christmas episode of the first season, where it was just like I just watched it on like cable one time, and I thought it was hilarious. So that's kind of when I started to sort of invest my time into this series, and I'm glad it did. It's not, you know, it definitely isn't like there's not it's not the highest quality show, but it's a sitcom, so it's not really like what you expect. But I think the writing is solid. All the characters, you know, even if they're not the most consistent from episode to episode or season to season, I think they're all like, you know, memorable and likable and stuff like that. So I think in that way it's commendable, and it's you know it's up there as one of my like most enjoyable shows for sure. Outside of that, in terms of other mediums, I guess, um, yeah, I don't really got anything. Just the usual YouTube, that kind of thing. Twitter's crazy, man. It's not much of a statement, but Twitter is crazy. Whenever like I don't know. This is kind of why I deleted like Facebook in the first place, just because it got way too political. Like every post was political. It's just some opinion based, and Twitter's is literally just all opinions, right? Which is, you know, it's whatever. But I'm mostly there just because there's a lot of funny stuff on there. Um, but it's just whenever like I don't know, some shit gets thrown around, it's just always just so you just feel this kind of weird sensation, right? Like you just kind of feel this kind of sort of this hatred, right? Like you don't usually feel this dislike towards something. It's like, oh, I didn't realize I didn't like that, right? Like you read something that's like, did you know that like whole grain wheat like is created using, you know, dead fetuses or whatever the fuck, and you're like, well, I don't want to eat whole grain now. Like it's that kind of thing. You learn new things for sure, but then you start to dislike a whole new array of things, which I don't know how to feel about, right? Like you're like, you know, it's culturally insensitive to say this or that. It's culturally insensitive to do this or that, right? And it might be true in some cases, and I might even agree with some of those cases, but it doesn't make me feel like I'm any better right, for not doing those things. Now that I have like the knowledge of this new concept, you're like, well, shit, what the fuck do I do now, right? Like, what do I do to like improve my livelihood, and I guess improve other people's livelihood by not doing this thing? You know, it's like it's just it's difficult, right? It's difficult to really gauge. I think like you just kind of like I just don't want to have that mentality of just walking on eggshells all the fucking time. I think it's good to be sensitive towards like other people and their struggles and that thing, just sort of be sort of being considerate. Like that's kind of a basic thing, right? Being considerate, being cautious around certain things, but the whole like idea of just like walking on eggshells and just like trying to maneuver through every conversation is just so, oh god, it's just chaotic, It's just like, God, there's just no there's just no sense of like having fun within this field. So like, I don't know. Twitter just kind of makes me feel just sort of gross in that regard. So I don't use it that often. I just kind of use it to sort of peruse through like funny stuff. Same with like Reddit too. Reddit kind of is a similar thing. Just the internet in general. Not even like, basing it off of any single website. It's just having this connection with other people. You're just sort of exposed to a whole new world of problems in a way, which, like I said, it's good to be, it's good to learn of these things, but it's also kind of like sort of detrimental in a sense, it's just for your own sanity in a sense. So it's just everything in moderation, just like with most things. And I think it's just like, I don't know how like effective it is to have, like, it's important to get your opinion across, but like I don't know how like how effective it is. I don't know how effective Twitter is in terms of like bringing up like social causes and stuff like that. I don't know how that works. Could be an interesting like paper topic for sure. Twitter, like media analytics and how it affects like economies and stuff like that. Right now I'm taking this economic rhetoric class, and I feel like there's kind of like a broad thing. I so far I'm enjoying the class mainly because we talk about like interesting things like economics. That like this is like this class is kind of the reason why I got into like economics in the first place. Back in like high school, I took this one English and writing class. It was an AP class, and I wrote a paper on like economics. It's just kind of like a very basic kind of thing, and I delved into like some interesting ideas like minimum wage, things that I was not very educated on, but I was interested in back when I was like 16, 17, and I wrote about like that. I wrote about Bitcoin. I still, I had no idea what that was about, and I still don't really, but I wrote about it, and so just sort of like digital currency and that kind of thing, just sort of like a basic idea overview of those kind of topics. And that's kind of what I was like, okay, this is interesting. These are very, these ideas are not something that I feel like you necessarily think about on like a day-to-day basis, right? Like you don't really think about how, say like I wrote a paper on I'm still working on it, but like right now I'm writing this short paper on how decriminalizing cannabis can lead to like the increase in tax revenue for states, right? Like that's not really that complex of an idea. Like I'm trying to find like a more like nuanced thing, something from like Freakonomics. And like when I read that book, that's kind of what got me interested for sure. I read both like Freakonomics and Super Freakonomics, and those two books along with some other stuff. There's another book that I read by Malcolm Gladwell that was very interesting. Just sort of these like social and like economic concepts that sort of come together Like it's just sort of interesting to think about, you know. So, excuse me. So, yeah, that's kind that those are the things that like got me into the subject in general, you know. And now, it's not necessarily something that I want to study for my career or during my lifetime, but it is interesting to kind of delve into. It's interesting to learn about, and so this class is just sort of like kind of giving me sort of like a just looking back, like within hindsight, like okay, this class, these ideas are kind of why I got interested in the topic, in the first place, and then eventually kind of led me down the road, and now I'm focusing on like accounting and stuff like that. But I'm glad I'm taking this class just because like I think there's a lot of interesting topics that I can kind of delve into, and I think that as I'm trying to trace back my thoughts, I think maybe like thinking about like the idea of like media analytics and how it affects like economies and stuff like that could be an interesting topic. I have no idea how I'm going to tie these two things together, like Twitter and like the US economy, like that kind of thing. Of course, it's like, the stocks, shareholders of like Twitter and how they're, you know, receiving income and stuff like that. That's one aspect, but I'm trying to think like of a more like nuanced and a more micro kind of idea of like how social, what is it, social activism on Twitter and how it affects, economies, or like cancel culture and like economics and stuff like that. That could be like an interesting paper topic, maybe. I'm not entirely sure. I'm not sure if there's really any papers written on it or anything like that. Maybe it's a little too new of a concept, but just sort of like an interesting idea to think about, for sure. Anyways, that's probably going to do it for today. I don't really have any recommended music. Let me see if there's anything I've listened to recently. I've just kind of been listening to the same stuff. I've been listening to Earth Gang, re-listening to Mirrorland a little bit, and just kind of some other stuff on the side. Ooh, here's an album that I do recommend. Kemba is a rapper from Brooklyn, I believe. He he had one of my favorite projects way back in high school, back in like 2013. He had an album called GNK, and I listened to the hell out of that album, like way too much. Like I listened to it front and back, just like so many times. And he had like another album a couple years ago that was also pretty good. But recently he released this album called Gilda, which is in memoriam of his mother and sort of the ways he's kind of dealt with that loss and sort of the ways he's sort of, dealt with like the depression, the anxiety, those types of issues that he's kind of faced following his mother's death. And I think it's a pretty good album. It's very introspective. So I recommend checking that out if you're looking for another rap album to satisfy your hunger. Anyways, that's probably going to do it for today. This has been Save the Semantics, signing off.